Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, David Janes with you on this Monday morning, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. David Janes is back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, continuing to hold it down for us. David, appreciate you sticking it out over there at the studio while we, endure the winter weather elsewhere.
I mean, you know what? I mean, as the show says, next man up. That's just how I'm doing it right now.
Right. We had to mix things up today. So David is at the controls, but Parker is still with us, as he always is on Mondays. Parker, what's going on?
Oh, Jake, we're just out here trying to survive, man. Haven't lost power yet, so that's a good thing. But man, these roads are in bad shape.
Well, I was going to say I am still in Columbia, South Carolina, so I have not been able to actually see what's going on in Nashville. But, I've seen videos, I've seen pictures, of course, keeping track of what's going on with the power outages. I just checked the NES website, and it looks like still 170,000 people without power. So hope everybody out there staying warm, staying safe. And thank you to all the linemen out there who are working long shifts in the cold weather, in the elements, trying to get the power back on. But obviously not an ideal situation. So we will keep you updated if there's any kind of updates that come out from the city, Nashville Electric Service, anything else throughout the show today. But I am still in Columbia, played the game against South Carolina yesterday, and obviously not very possible to get back into Nashville today. So we're kind of taking each day as it comes, and we'll see where we end up. Supposed to play Ole Miss on Thursday. So as for most people, I think right now, a lot of things up in the air for all of us.
Yeah, no, and you said that you're going to be kind of out in the Southeast region really all this week. You say you're not going to get home until what, Thursday night?
Thursday night is the hope, because we're supposed to play Ole Miss on Thursday. So it just becomes a question of when can you play, where can you play, how can you get there? So lots up in the air. I'm glad I'm not making those decisions. We have a great staff at Vandy Women's Basketball who's working on that right now as we speak. So we will figure that out. But we are here in Columbia today, and we've got a lot to talk about on this Reaction Monday. And Reaction Monday is always brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Parker, great day of football yesterday. I mentioned we had our game yesterday, so I missed most of the first half of the AFC Championship game. But I was shocked to tune in and see all of the snow that was pouring down in Denver. We were having the conversation on Friday about how lucky it is that this game is in Denver and not New England, because they would be dealing with blizzard-like conditions. Well, guess what? They got it anyway in the third and fourth quarter out there at Mile High. And as much as, the Patriots, they made enough plays necessary, you do wonder what that game could have looked like if the snow and the wind and everything that was going on didn't play a factor down the stretch.
Yeah, it was crazy how fast the snow kind of happened, because at the start of the game, it was, I believe, 27 degrees at kickoff. And then, midway through the third quarter, you can't even see the field because it's just covered in snow. And it was kind of perfect because that's the same weather we're kind of having here right now. So, it was a very fun game, very low scoring, which I thought at the beginning of the game would actually favor Denver. The more low scoring it was, the thought was the Broncos had a better chance to win. The more high scoring, it favored the Patriots. So it was pretty low scoring. The Patriots kind of did whatever it took to win, which is typical Mike Vrabel, So it was a very fun game, though, nonetheless.
Yeah, that was a perfect Mike Vrabel game. Just grind it out, basically try and punt the ball as much as you possibly can. That felt like it was the strategy. Just do not turn the football over. Do not give them an easy touchdown at the end of the game to win. Like, just punt it and force Jarrett Stidham in the snow, in the wind, to go and beat you. And it just wasn't going to happen. I mean, Jarrett Stidham, credit to him, he had them in the game, right? They score the touchdown early. You're up 7-0. They get down there again, and everybody's going to point to that fourth down decision from Sean Payton, and rightfully so. I think there are situations where you want to be aggressive and you want to go get points. Last week, for instance, against the Bills, you're facing Josh Allen and a high-powered offense on the other side. You have Bo Nix at quarterback. It makes sense. You have a 4th and short, you go for it, and you see if you can put a touchdown on the board. That's not the situation here. Like, you have Jarrett Stidham. Your defense is great. And I know that there probably wasn't an expectation that that kind of weather was coming through, but I'm sure they knew that there was something coming, right? Like, I'm sure that it wasn't just completely out of nowhere. Boom, you've got, 3 inches of snow falling on the field in the fourth quarter. Like, take the points. I do not understand why Sean Payton, in that situation with that quarterback and the way your defense has been playing, take the points, go up 10-0, and hope that that's enough to win the game.
You would hope that they at least looked at the forecast. I mean, that's the thinking. But with Jarrett Stidham, I honestly do not pin that loss on him. If I had to pick a scapegoat, I'm really looking at Sean Payton, because you're right, that 4th and 1, and this kind of gets into the whole analytics versus game feel debate, because I've never been a huge analytics guy. I believe they're helpful to a certain extent, but at that point in the game, it's 4th and 1. At least you know that bad weather is incoming, and you know it's going to be low scoring with the two good defenses that are out there on the field. You have a backup quarterback. It's 4th and 1. You got to take the points right there. That's not the type of situation you want to go for it. And think about it. I mean, hindsight's 20/20. You kick the field goal right there before the bad wind starts coming and everybody's missing field goals left and right. You take the field goal right there, there's a good chance you're going to overtime.
Yeah, I don't know how many points were going to be scored in that game the rest of the way. There's a chance they go to overtime. They just keep playing continuously, because the way the wind was playing a role down the stretch, whichever team was playing, I guess it was from left to right in the fourth quarter, because the Patriots could not get a punt to go anywhere.
Man.
You probably couldn't throw the football. Like, I just did not see that game having a very concise ending if it went to overtime, because neither team could find a way to score. But credit to the Patriots, credit to Mike Vrabel and that team. They did exactly what they needed to do to win that game. Playing that Broncos defense, you knew you didn't need to score a whole lot of points with Jarrett Stidham on the other side. They did exactly what they needed to win. They took advantage of a short field for that touchdown for Drake May. They made the field goal before the conditions got too bad, and boom, you're going to the Super Bowl. So credit to them. They will take on the Seattle Seahawks. We got a much more interesting game, high-scoring game at the very least. Both games were close at the very least, but in the nightcap, Seattle beats LA 31-27, and just like you look back at that Denver-New England game, it came down to a 4th down. And I actually really like the decision from Sean McVay to go for it on 4th and goal there to try and take the lead. Either way, you were going to have to go and score again. Your defense was going to have to get the ball back for you, and you would have to go score again. Sure, you would need a field goal, but if you kick that field goal and make it 31-30 and you never touch the football again, I think hindsight looking back, you're like, man, why didn't we go for it there? We had a chance to take the lead. And it didn't work out, but I like the call from Sean McVay. They went through it. Witherspoon with an unbelievable play to just basically run the route for his man. And Seattle ends up running the clock all the way down. They get it back with about 30 seconds left, not nearly enough time to go and win the game. And Seattle going to the Super Bowl. We got a rematch of, was it Super Bowl 49?
Yeah, I believe so.
The Malcolm Butler.
I can't remember the exact
interception.
Year. Yeah, so that's kind of the game feel that I'm talking about with Sean McVay right there going for it on 4th down, because my thought process was, okay, before that possession, there were 4 straight drives where the Seahawks and Rams both scored 2 touchdowns. So it was a shootout at that point. So if you take the field goal right there, in that situation, based on what my defense has done prior, I'm not sure if I trust them to get a stop.
Right.
And you also bring up the point, too, of Seattle had enough time to just run down the clock, which they very well could have done. So I don't fault them going for it on 4th down right there, because, again, Sam Darnold proved that he wasn't the Sam Darnold in the playoffs of last year. He proved that he played like the Sam Darnold in the regular season. So props to him. Very happy for Darnold, but I don't fault Sean McVay one bit for going for it right there.
Yeah, credit to Sam Darnold. He has silenced his doubters over the last about month and a half, 2 months, pretty much since that second Rams game. He threw the pick against the Rams that looked like it was going to ice it, and everybody was ready to take their victory laps on Sam Darnold of, well, he can get you there, but when the big games come up, he can't win them. And he brought Seattle back to win that game. You win the Week 18 game against San Francisco, back-to-back playoff wins, and Sam Darnold's going to the Super Bowl. Crazy to say that from that loaded quarterback class of 2017, that he is the first one to go to the Super Bowl over Josh Allen, over Lamar Jackson, even Baker Mayfield, who heading into this year and about 6 weeks into this year was being talked about as an MVP candidate. Sam Darnold is the first one to go to a Super Bowl. And of course, have to mention Josh Rosen as well was a first round pick.
How could you forget Josh Rosen? I think the crazier stat with all of this is Sam Darnold is going to be the first USC quarterback to start in a Super Bowl game. Wow. You think about all the great quarterbacks that USC has had, and Sam Darnold's going to be the first.
Crazy. And it's Sam Darnold versus Mike Vrabel in the Super Bowl. And I'm sure there are Titans fans with thoughts about that. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We will get into the Vrabel of it all on the other side. Yes, 2 years after being fired as the Titans head coach, and his first year as the coach of the Patriots, Mike Vrabel is going to coach for a Super Bowl. We'll talk about it next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, David Janes off and running on this Monday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, David Janes with you. Again, hope everyone out there is staying as safe and warm as possible. We will keep you updated if there are any developments with the weather, with the Nashville Electric Service. Again, hoping power comes back on for everybody who's been without it for the last day or two. Obviously, a very tough time with all the ice that rolled through this weekend. So again, we will keep you informed throughout the morning. We are talking about the Super Bowl, which will include former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. In his first season with the New England Patriots, Mike Vrabel wins the AFC, something that he could not do here in Nashville in more than a few chances in the playoffs. And Parker, immediately, all of the national pundits out there, oh, how stupid are the Titans for firing Mike Vrabel? I actually heard Mike Greenberg say that on Get Up this morning, and I get it. And looking back, no one could make the argument that Amy Adams Strunk made the right decision to fire Mike Vrabel. Obviously, we've seen what has happened since with the Titans and what Mike Vrabel just did this year. But I still struggle to come to terms with the fact that would it have happened here? Could he have ever gotten the Titans to where the Patriots are now, given what the roster looked like? It's not like he had an unlimited leash if you left him here for one more year. If he gets one more season, who's to say that he doesn't go 5-12 and gets fired after that year? Like, I didn't see him turning it around after losing 18 of his last 24 games. It sucks and it hurts to look and say, man, we were so close with Mike Vrabel and now he's doing it somewhere else. But I really don't see a scenario where, yeah, you give him one more year and he gets this team back to being Super Bowl contenders as fast as he was able to do it in New England.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so easy to look back on this situation and say, man, the Titans really screwed up here. They shouldn't have fired Mike Vrabel. I don't think he would have had the leash to get this team to a Super Bowl because it's, we're forgetting that this team went on a 7-game losing streak. I believe it was that the 21 season.
Yeah,
this team went on
a 22 season.
22 season, started 7-3, then lost the last 7 games. Went 6-11 the following year. So it's not like things were exactly sunshine and rainbows during Mike Vrabel's into his tenure here in Nashville. I also think you look at the personnel, and you have Drake May, who is an ascending quarterback in year 2. You have a defense who this team just went out and attacked free agency. I truly believe they had one of the better off seasons prior to this season in the entire league. You go out and you get guys like Milton Williams, who's played very well for you on your defensive line. You go out and you get guys like Carlton Davis in the secondary who are playing very well. Stephon Diggs, a pass catcher for Drake May. You draft well, get Travion Henderson, a good running back. So I think the personnel is a lot better in New England this year than what he had in Tennessee. So I don't think he would have gotten a Super Bowl at least in the coming years. So it's so easy, though. It's so easy to say the Titans shouldn't have fired Mike Vrabel.
No, I know. And that's what's going to be the story. And I would guess we get 2 or 3 different cinematic videos during the lead up to Super Bowl week, probably during the pregame coverage of the Super Bowl, of Mike Vrabel was cast aside in Nashville and had to take a year off and go be an analyst in Cleveland. But he learned from it. Now look where he is, all that kind of stuff. We're going to get all of it. And I would guess everybody is, man, how stupid must the Titans feel right now for letting go of Mike Vrabel? But again, he went 6-18 in his last 24. And it's not all his fault. And I think looking back now, you can say, yeah, it probably wasn't his fault really at all. They had a horrible roster. John Robinson made some bad picks. You do have to say that Mike Vrabel, he was part of those decisions, I'm sure. Like, John Robinson wasn't doing this just unilaterally and picking Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley. I'm sure Vrabel had a say in some of those picks. But you look back and say, yeah, he wasn't the problem. The roster was the problem. But that roster wasn't getting better. And again, I don't know what he would have done with that 24 season. But given who he had as his offensive coordinator the last few years with Downing and Kelly, and you didn't see development from Will Levis all that much, I struggle to see that he was going to put that team back into playoff contention in 2024. And if you go 3 years where you win 13 games, you're probably getting fired. And so I don't see Vrabel doing it with the Titans. But obviously it stings to look back and say, man, that guy had us right on the edge a couple of years of the Titans finally getting to a Super Bowl again. And now it only took 1 year for him to go to New England to get it done.
No, it stings, no doubt. And I'm happy for Vrabel. I'm happy to see him in this spot. He's done a remarkable coaching job. And I've been so torn on, out of the 5 finalists for Coach of the Year, who I think should win. And I think yesterday kind of solidified in my mind, you take a team that went 4-13 the previous 2 seasons, and you take them all the way to the Super Bowl. And not to mention what Drake May has been able to do this year. But with the Patriots, I really do think that you watch them and you can tell that Mike Vrabel does things a little bit differently in New England than he did in Tennessee. So maybe that year in Cleveland helped a lot more than we might initially realize. But I really think with Josh McDaniel, the job that he's done at offensive coordinator with Drake May, in this league, it's about having elite quarterback play. And the Patriots have that, and the Titans didn't when Vrabel was here.
0540 on the text line is very upset, saying that it's the worst take ever and it was never Vrabel. What do you like, Vrabel? You are what your record says you are at some point, right? And you can't just hold on to a coach who's losing over and over. That's the point we're trying to make, is that Vrabel, sure, I think Vrabel would have been the right coach for the Titans to take you to the Super Bowl if you could have gotten the roster turned around quickly. But that roster, we've seen it. The roster is really bad. And Mike Vrabel, yes, I think you won 6 games in the last 2 years. You probably win closer to 10 to 12 in the last 2 years with Mike Vrabel. But does that keep his job? I don't think so. Like, Mike Vrabel was never going to get the opportunity to turn this thing around when the roster went to crap. And he's acting like we're defending the front office. I'm not defending the front office. All of this is the front office's fault. John Robinson, Amy Adams-Strunk deserves fault in this too, but John Robinson made horrible picks for 3 straight years and traded A.J. Brown. Rand Carthon came in and tried to accelerate the rebuild way too fast and ended up making it even worse. This is their fault that the Titans are this bad. It's not Mike Vrabel's fault. But Mike Vrabel was never going to get long enough of a leash to turn this thing around. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that, sure, Mike Vrabel, if you guaranteed him 5 more years, I think the Titans are in a much better spot than they are right now. But Vrabel was never going to get 5 more years. He was going to get fired at some point. It happened earlier than it should have, but Vrabel was never going to get a long enough leash to turn things around here in Nashville like he has in New England.
2 things are true. 1, it wasn't Mike Vrabel's fault. And 2, he wasn't going to have a long enough leash, because there is only so – I hope that texter just heard me say that I think he deserves Coach of the Year. Vrabel, I believe, is a top 10 coach in the NFL. But when the roster is as bad as it is, there was only one perfect man to walk this earth, and Mike Vrabel is not him. There's only so much that you can do when a roster is that bad. And the Patriots revamped their entire roster over the offseason. The roster was terrible last year.
Right. It's funny being told we're defending the front office when we're basically saying that the front office put Mike Vrabel in such a bad position that he had no chance to keep his job. That's basically what we're saying, is that.
Was Vrabel responsible for trading A.J. Brown?
No, he was clearly very upset about it. No, I am doing the opposite of defending the front office.
Right.
I'm saying the front office gave the Titans such a horrible roster that Mike Vrabel had no chance to actually stick around and see if he could get it fixed. Now, looking back, I know one of the sticking points of firing Mike Vrabel was he wanted roster control. And you look back, and I think a lot of Titans fans, myself included, and a lot of people in the media were saying, why would you give him roster control? He hasn't earned that. He hasn't won a Super Bowl. Why would you do it? Well, the Patriots have done it, and you look where they are now. Maybe that's something that you can look back and say, yeah, maybe they should have considered that Vrabel was the guy who was getting you to the AFC Championship in 2019 with his coaching and was able to work through the most players in NFL history and get you to the 1 seed in 2021. And it wasn't his fault that they came up short. Looking back, you can make all those points. But in the moment, you're 6-18. The roster is horrible. Maybe you give him 1 more year. I look back and I don't see a realistic scenario where Mike Vrabel is here in 2026 and this team is still good. The team is better with Mike Vrabel, no doubt about it. But the 2025 season probably still ends with double-digit losses, even if Mike Vrabel is your head coach.
And it's pretty clear that Amy and the front office did not give Mike Vrabel what he wanted, and that kind of resulted to where we are today. And that's based on them hiring Brian Callahan, a yes man, a quote unquote offensive guru, very different personality style from what Mike Vrabel was. But the second he got to New England, I believe that he does have a lot more roster control than he had here. And I believe that that explains exactly how we are where we are today.
Yeah. And I think you can look and say the Titans, they swung the pendulum way too far back from Mike Vrabel because Amy didn't like working with Vrabel, and you said it. She wanted a yes man. She wanted the nice, friendly guy. And Brian Callahan, super nice guy. No one can say that. He just wasn't a very good head coach. He was not a good head coach at all. I worry that the Titans overcorrected for the sake of overcorrecting back to Robert Saleh. I hope not. I like Robert Saleh as a hire. I don't love it. I like it. I hope that they didn't overcorrect back towards the Vrabel-esque coach just for the sake of overcorrecting from Brian Callahan. But we will see. Robert Saleh going to be introduced on Wednesday. That is the plan, Wednesday afternoon. We'll see if weather has anything to say about that. But that is the plan, and we're still looking to see who his coordinators might be. We will talk about that throughout the show as well. A quick update here from Nashville Severe Weather on Twitter. And if you're wanting updates, that's a great account to follow. Nash Severe WX on X. Cold and lots of sun today. High today is 18 degrees. Worse single-digit lows for the few nights. Warming shelters remain open in both counties. Don't be afraid to use them. Power slowly coming back as crews work tirelessly. Give tree and power crews some room and check in with friends and loved ones. So good advice there. Make sure to stay updated on X, and we will continue to give you updates as they come in as well. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll continue talking about the Super Bowl. It will be Patriots and Mike Vrabel against the Seahawks coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll continue the conversation next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, David Janes, Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025. The Game with you on this reaction Monday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, David James. Super Bowl is set. Patriots, Seahawks. Mike Vrabel is going to the Super Bowl in year one in New England. We're having the conversation around all of the talk of, look back at the Titans. They fired Mike Vrabel, and look at him now. Parker and I are in lockstep here of, I don't think he was ever going to get the leash to turn things around. Yeah, looking back, he should have gotten a longer one, but it doesn't seem like there's a realistic scenario where it happens here. Let's go to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland has been waiting patiently. Adam, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, dude. So there's a couple of things. Number one, I didn't want Vrabel to win a Super Bowl not because I hate Vrabel, but because I feel like the Patriots have won enough. And so,
agreed.
But there's a person in this world who loves Sam Darnold and thinks Vrabel has just lucked his way to this, and I want him to lose so bad that I hope Vrabel wins by 40-something. So that's where I'm at now. I do want him to do it just because I do not want Sam Darnold to win this. It's not good for the world if Sam Darnold wins this, for everybody in Nashville at least to have to hear this. And then just looking back on those games yesterday, I'm not going to make excuses for him. It makes me think that our quarterback had a pretty good year considering the circumstances. Like, he had to play all four of those teams. He had a daunting schedule, man. Like, it just that's where I'm leaning into. Like, Cam, I can't wait to see what you could do when you actually have somebody helping you. And he had really nothing. He had a couple of good young players, but that's where I'm at, dude. I hope the Patriots win, and I think we could all kind of look back and go, you know what? Cam had the worst schedule any rookie could possibly have.
Yeah, it is funny. I think I want to find this tweet from Nick Suss because I think he put this out yesterday, because we made the point that Cam Ward had to face all four of the teams who played for championships yesterday, and including two of them in the first 2 weeks, the Broncos and the Rams, the two teams that lost yesterday. Here it is. Nick Suss from the Tennessean said, a quick Titans thought. The 2025 Titans are the first team since the 1971 Patriots to earn the number one pick in the draft the previous season and draw all four teams that went on to play for the conference championship on their ensuing schedule. So the Titans, they had one of, if not the toughest schedule in the league. And Cam Ward didn't have a great rookie season, but I think you can look back at some of the early struggles and say, yeah, I mean, he played some of the best defenses in football, especially early in the year. Broncos, Rams, Texans, Patriots, all within the first 7 weeks of the season. So, I mean, you do have to factor that in when talking about Cam Ward's rookie year.
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night because as I was watching these games, I'm like, wait a minute. The Titans, and I may have been late to the party, but I'm like, man, the Titans really did play all four of these teams at one point this year. And then when you think about having to play the Jags defense twice a year, you think about having to play the Texans defense twice a year. The Colts defense wasn't bad either. I mean, the Titans were never going to be good anyway this year. But when you have to play a schedule that difficult and that many good defenses with a rookie quarterback, I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough draw, and we saw Cam Ward grow down the stretch. And I know the Sam Darnold questions might be coming too of, man, you could have had Sam Darnold this year. And I say kind of the same thing I said about Vrabel is like, sure, he makes you better. He does make you better. You win more games this year with Sam Darnold, but how many more games? And does it make an impact? Like, if Cam Ward ends up being the guy, I would take Cam Ward. Obviously, if Cam Ward ends up being the guy, you feel great about it. But that's the risk you take with the number one overall pick. You feel convicted on a quarterback. You take a guy who you feel like can be your franchise quarterback, an elite quarterback in this league. And maybe he doesn't turn out to be that. But I like the swing from the Titans on Cam Ward rather than signing Sam Darnold, who I think Darnold is firmly a top 10 quarterback in this league. But with the roster around him, I don't think that he gets this team to a Super Bowl in the next 5 years or anything like that. In the AFC, you're going to need an elite quarterback, and the only way you get those guys is at the top of the draft, and you took a swing on Cam Ward.
What revitalized Sam Darnold's career? And that was going to work with Kevin O'Connell. Actually, you could have made the argument that working with Kyle Shanahan originally and then going to Kevin O'Connell and then getting to work with Clint Kubiak. I was also thinking about that. and we may be opening a separate can of worms debate here between Sam Darnold and Cam Ward, but we've had the discussion since Cam Ward was drafted that if you feel like he's the guy, if you feel like he's your franchise quarterback, you have to take him. And would I have liked to have Sam Darnold? Sure. But there's no guarantee that he would have the same success.
No. And I think maybe we look back 5 years down the road and say, yeah, the Titans should have signed Sam Darnold. You also have to ask the question, did Sam Darnold really want to come here, right? Like, did he want to sign up for a team that was clearly in a rebuild and had the number 1 pick in the draft rather than go to a team that won 10 games last year and could be that missing piece to elevate them to where they are now going to the Super Bowl? But you're right. We're opening a separate can of worms. Adam saying he's rooting for the Patriots just to see Sam Darnold lose. I am engaged to a Patriots fan, so I guess by default I'm rooting for the Patriots.
I didn't know that.
It's really tough, Parker. Like, going to their Super Bowl parties in high school, having to hear them lose to the Eagles and go, well, you can't win them all, and hear them say stuff like that. I'm like, you guys have no idea the side quests that all of the other NFL fan bases are going on, trying to win their first Super Bowl while you guys have won 5 in 10 years and are just like, oh, well, you can't win them all.
And now they have Drake May, and they're right back. They're right back here.
Seeing the Patriots fans celebrating yesterday, and I do hope my fiance is not listening, seeing them celebrate yesterday, it just, God, it's so tough. They're like, oh, we're back. You guys have been gone for 5 years. The Titans haven't been to a Super Bowl in almost 30 years now. There are teams that still have never been to a Super Bowl. Brutal. But by default, I guess I'm rooting for the Patriots, at least outwardly, in that game. Patriots and Seahawks coming up on Super Bowl Sunday. We'll get into that game a little bit more. But with the Vrabel stuff, we've got some texts here. We made the point of what's the realistic scenario where Mike Vrabel is here long enough to get this team back into contention with the roster that he's been given. 3 straight drafts of absolutely nothing. Not just first-round picks, nothing. You missed on your second, your third, all your day 3 picks. John Robinson, as good as he was at getting this team back to winning, he sent them back to losing about as quick as he was able to figure it out. So Lenny says the realistic scenario was Amy keeping her nose out of something that she has no idea about, and that's football. And Lenny, that's fair. I think we'd all like for Amy Adams Strunk to take a more detached role from the football team and trust her football people to do what they're paid to do. Pick the players, coach the players. But at some point, you lose enough games, the fan base is going to be calling for Vrabel. And it wasn't everybody. I think a lot of Titans fans did want to keep Vrabel, but there were Titans fans who wanted Vrabel gone after the 2023 season. And again, looking back, it was the wrong decision. But eventually it gets to the point where you lose enough games that you have no choice but to fire the coach. And that's not Amy Adams Strunk sticking her nose where it shouldn't be. That's just how football works. No matter what your pedigree is and how many Coach of the Year awards you've won and how many Super Bowls you've won, if you lose enough, eventually you get fired. And like Mike Vrabel, yeah, he got you to the AFC Championship when you were the 6th seed back in 2019. He got you to the AFC, to the number 1 seed in the AFC with all the injuries they dealt with in 21. He's a good coach, and we're seeing that now. But he didn't have the pedigree that 3 straight losing seasons doesn't at least get him on the hot seat. And that's what I'm saying is, sure, you give him another year, but is he going to go 10-7 with that roster in 2024? No, he's not. He wins more games than Brian Callahan, but there isn't a timeline for me where it works out that Mike Vrabel sticks around and actually gets this team back to where the Patriots are now.
I'm a big Mike Vrabel fan. I think right now he's a top 10 coach in the league. At the end of the day, the NFL is one of the biggest businesses in the United States, and it's about wins and losses. And if we see people in Pittsburgh calling for Mike Tomlin's job, and we see people in Baltimore calling for John Harbaugh's job, what did you think was going to happen to Vrabel when he went on a 7-game losing streak? When you had Will Levis and were 6-11? So, yeah, I mean, I would have loved to see what it would have looked like if Vrabel had more roster control, if he got what he wanted. But we unfortunately did not get the chance to see that.
Right. I agree. Looking back, you should have given Vrabel what he wanted. And we're seeing that now that he got what he wanted in New England, and they went from 4-13 to the Super Bowl in 1 year. Nobody out here is defending Amy Adams Strunk for firing Mike Vrabel. It was the wrong choice. But again, I'm just looking at it realistically of what the NFL looks like and how quick a trigger these fan bases have when it comes to coaches. And you look around, you mentioned some of the names. John Harbaugh got fired. Mike Tomlin, the calls were for him to get fired. Sean McDermott just got fired. Good coaches get fired when they don't live up to expectations. And Mike Vrabel, even if he was fired early, I don't see a scenario where he is still the head coach right now if Mike Vrabel kept him. Cody on the text line says you don't fire a great coach when you have one. So saying he wouldn't have a leash is dumb to me. But Cody, like, great coach is very subjective. Like, yes, we liked what Mike Vrabel did here. But again, you are what your record says you are. And even if they go 7-10 instead of 3-14 in 2024, that's a coach who lost 28 out of his last 41 games, 13-28. That gets you fired a lot of the time. And I hate it. You got to watch Mike Vrabel on the sidelines in a Super Bowl wearing a Patriots, pullover. But I just don't see a timeline where this works out. The only timeline where you could have figured this out and the Titans could still be in contention, and we talked about this a few weeks back, if A.J. Brown doesn't get traded, I think John Robinson might still be here. I think Mike Vrabel might still be here. I think Derrick Henry might still be here. That A.J. Brown trade set everything off, and once it got rolling, really there was nothing you could do to stop it. And Mike Vrabel, I wish he stuck around. I wish Amy Adams Strunk did not fire him. But looking back, I don't think it ever would have happened in Nashville.
You're right. You're right. It's a shame that we can point to one situation on the timeline that just started the snowball effect of all this. We're not defending anybody. We're just kind of laying out what's happened, why it's happened. It's an unfortunate reality, but it's the situation we're in. And to bring up something you brought up earlier about Robert Saleh, I think the pendulum may be swinging in the other way.
Yep.
I don't know how big of a fan I am of the move yet, but we'll have to see how it works out. Got to give him a chance now that he's here.
Yep, the staff is important, and we'll get into the offensive coordinator search coming up in the 10 o'clock hour. I think Chris in Nashville makes a good point here. I wanted Vrabel fired too, is what he says, but it's clear now the roster was the real issue. Yes, that you can look back and say Mike Vrabel was not at fault for how bad this team got. In fact, he might have been holding it together more than we knew. But in the NFL, eventually the coach takes responsibility for the wins and the losses. And it would have happened at some point. It happened earlier than it should have, but it was going to happen at some point. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. On the other side, we will actually talk about the game that's going to be played at Levi Stadium. Seahawks, Patriots, Super Bowl 60 coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about it next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, David James, next man up, 125 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, David Janes with you on this Monday. Again, hope everyone's staying as warm as possible, as safe as possible out there as NES tries to get power back on, and hopefully the conditions out there improve. I know low temperatures today not going to help very much, but we will keep you updated as much as we can on any developments there. Again, we are talking about the Super Bowl here. We will get into the Titans offensive coordinator search at the top of the hour, but let's give something away. Be caller number 3 at 615-737-1025, and you can win a pair of tickets to a Belmont basketball doubleheader as the men's team and women's team both face Murray State on Saturday at the Curve Event Center. The tip-off for the women's game is at 4, men are at 7. Again, caller number 3 at 615-737-1025 to win a pair of tickets to a Belmont basketball doubleheader. Parker, let's get into the actual football that's going to be played in the Super Bowl. We've talked a lot about Mike Vrabel and all of the extra that comes with that when it comes to the Titans. Skyler does mention that this is a Titans-heavy Super Bowl. Not only Mike Vrabel is the coach, but the Seahawks have Ernest Jones. Roger McCreary, I think, is hurt, but I know, obviously, the Titans traded him there. The Patriots have a lot of Titans, Jack Gibbons, Harold Landry, etc.
Coaching staff is filled with Titans.
Right. Who was the other linebacker who the Titans had? And he's kind of bounced around, but he's been really good in a couple of places. Pittsburgh, Vegas. Man, I'm blanking on his name.
I'm blanking on it too.
He's going to get paid, I want to say, too. It's not just Dr. Gibby. It's
that's the only one that's coming to my mind. Him and Landry.
Somebody's going to help me out on this. But I'm looking through the roster because he's been really good. He's going to get paid. I want to say this offseason. It is Robert Spillane. Yes. He's been really good with the Steelers, the Raiders, and now the Patriots. So, and he started his career with the Titans, if I'm not mistaken. So there will be lots of former Titans out there on the field in Super Bowl 60. I think we're going to get a good game. And, you're expecting good weather conditions. So you'll get Drake May, you'll get Sam Darnold. These defenses are both very good. I think I lean Seattle. The experience from Darnold as just an older quarterback. He's played in some more of these games. I think the defense is better on the other side for the Seahawks, but it wouldn't shock me if the Patriots won this game. It really wouldn't.
I'm with you. I'm leaning towards Seattle. The sports books are leaning towards Seattle. I think they opened as a 4.5-point favorite. But the way the defense has been playing under Mike Macdonald, it is so hard for me to see a world in which this game isn't low scoring for the Patriots. But with the offenses, I'm really excited to see if Sam Darnold continues to build on the game that he had versus the Rams. Now, he wasn't as much of a factor versus the 49ers, but he didn't have to be, because after Rashid Shaheed returned the opening kickoff, you could have ended the game right there and the Seahawks win. Plus, he had the oblique injury. For Drake May, though, I'm interested to see if the defense is able to cause him to turn the football over like Houston was able to do, because I don't think the weather was much of a factor in that divisional matchup versus the Texans, because Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter were able to beat Will Campbell, knock the ball out of Drake May's hands. I don't think the weather had much to do with that. So if the Seahawks defense is able to do similarly what the Texans were able to do, we'll see. I think Drake May really needs to focus on protecting the football, though. That's key number one.
Right. I think we talk about it similarly to the Miami Ole Miss game in the college football playoff of I feel like with Drake May, it is just avoiding the turnover. And maybe you could say the same about Sam Darnold, that whoever makes the least mistakes in this game is going to win. And I think we talked about that with Miami and Ole Miss of Chambliss and Beck they're both good players, but a little bit of a tendency to give the ball away. I kind of feel the same way about this one with Seattle and New England of whoever takes care of the football best is going to win. Sam Darnold, and you make a good point, he's been dealing with the oblique injury. Going to have 2 weeks to get fully rested. That could play a big role in this game because he looked pretty darn good yesterday. A couple of great deep balls hit Rashid Shaheed early on in that game. Jackson Smith-Njigba down the middle of the field.
He was dominant.
If that was less than 100% from Sam Darnold, then New England might be in trouble.
They were giving him the heating pad on the sideline too. And did you see the little wrap that he had?
Yeah. So he's clearly not fully healthy. He's going to have 2 weeks to get ready. Speaking of Jackson Smith-Njigba, I said this last night watching the game. The NFL overthought him so much. I mean, I watched that Rose Bowl game of him as a freshman, and I said, that dude is going to be a stud in the NFL. And I think he got a little bit of the prospect fatigue that you talk about with some of these guys who they're talked about as NFL guys from the second they step on campus, and you got to wait 2 years for them to actually be draft eligible. And with JSN, I was like, I would love for him to be a Titan. And the fact that he fell into the 20s just still stuns me to this day. And he is, I don't think you could call him the best wide receiver in the NFL, but he is at the very least in the conversation right now with the way that he's playing. He was unguardable for most of that game last night.
Well, I think it's, what happens when you trade away DK Metcalf and then JSN becomes the sole primary focus of your offense, at least from a receiving standpoint. They still have AJ Barner from the tight ends, but when JSN is the sole focus of your receiver room, look what he can do. I mean, I can't remember the exact stat off the top of my head, but it's something absurd about the amount of touches that he gets per game and where that stands in like the percentage of the total offense. It's absurd. But that dude had 300 yards versus Utah in the Rose Bowl game. It's impossible to watch that and just think, he's not going to be that good. He's insane.
I don't know if I could go back and find it, but I did tweet out after that Rose Bowl game. I said, I would love, you don't tank for wide receivers, but I would tank for Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Let's not overthink the room here.
Right. It feels like the NFL overthought him. And as good as Peter Skoronski has been, I was praying the Titans were walking up to the podium and taking Jackson Smith-Njigba that night. And there you go. And you're right. The Seahawks have done a really nice job of building out that receiving room. They've got exactly what you need. They've got JSN, who he's your elite. He's your number one guy who can kind of do it all. You've got Rashid Shaheed, who they traded for midseason, who just takes the top off the defense. He's a great returner. And then Cooper Kupp, he's not the old Cooper Kupp, but he's your technician. He's your third
Still
down
making
guy.
plays.
He made a huge play that the Rams wanted to challenge there and obviously couldn't. But Cooper Kupp making that play on third down to extend that drive, they've really done a nice job building out the weapons. You had the two-headed monster in the backfield before Charbonnet got hurt. Kenneth Walker was great last night. Really well done job by the Seahawks in building that team up over the last couple of years to get to where this team is right now.
I thought Zach Charbonnet, losing him, was going to take more of a toll on the offense because Clint Kubiak, Sam Darnold, they like to use play action. He thrives off of play action. So when you lose part of your run game, that takes a toll on the play action because it's not as effective. But Kenneth Walker yesterday making people – do you remember that play he made? I can't remember the linebacker's name. Made him miss in the backfield.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, my gosh.
Just teleported to the left. And
he played great. I thought he was phenomenal yesterday.
He was great. I mean, he established the run. It opened up the play action for Sam Darnold. I also want to give credit to Clint Kubiak. If he is not going to get a head coaching job this year, I would guess it's going to be next year. Teams may not want to wait a couple weeks to hire him, but man, he outcoached Chris Shula last night in a big way, especially down the stretch there. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. A big thanks to Jeff, Cody, and Tommy on the text line who simultaneously sent Spillane when I was searching for the Patriots.
Did he start his career with the Titans?
I think he did, and he was like an undrafted guy. Like I don't think it was one of these big things where how could you let him out of the building? But he has really turned in a really nice NFL career.
I have no idea how I can't remember that. I did not remember that.
I don't even know if he ever really even played for the Titans outside of special teams, but like he's just kind of worked his way up, and he's been a really good linebacker. So
it was kind of like with Darren Waller. He started his career with the Ravens, but no one knew that at first.
Yeah. Right. Right. That's a good point. Of some of those guys who get their start somewhere, it doesn't work out. They get the change of scenery and they figure it out. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. On the other side, the Titans are looking for their coordinators. And on the offensive side, is it Brian Daboll or bust after a couple of big options came off the board this weekend? We'll talk about it coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. David Janes back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. The Titans continuing to fill out their coaching staff. A couple of holdovers from the Brian Callahan staff were announced last week. Looks like Bones Fossil going to be sticking around. Both of the other coordinators, Nick Holtz and Denard Wilson, have moved on. Denard Wilson just got hired as the Giants defensive coordinator over the weekend. Yep. And then Luke Stalker, Tony Oden, and Randy Jordan are coming back as well as position coaches for the Titans. But the big question everybody has is who's going to be the offensive coordinator. You hire Robert Saleh, who is defensive-minded guy. Seems like he's going to call the defensive plays. So I know they've been making these interviews for defensive coordinator. I worry way less about that than OC. And it does seem like the smoke around Brian Daboll is strong, that the Titans are waiting it out on Daboll. If he does not get a head coaching job, he's interviewed with the Bills and now the Raiders. If he does not get either of those jobs, likely he is going to be the Titans offensive coordinator. But over the weekend, some of the other names that had been linked to the Titans, Bobby Slowick, He's going back to the Dolphins under a new head coach and is going to be the offensive coordinator. And Arthur Smith, kind of out of nowhere, is going to go to Ohio State. So is it Brian Daboll or bust at this point for the Titans? Are they kind of putting all their eggs in the Brian Daboll basket?
Think about it. It started with Mike McDaniel and then Bobby Slowick and now Arthur Smith. So what are you really down to? It's Daboll. I think Cliff Kingsbury is still in the mix, and then the Packers OC. I can't remember his name.
Adam Stenavich.
Yeah,
I believe
Adam Stenavich.
They both might be interviewing today or tomorrow. I saw a report about that, but I don't know exactly. Let me see if I can find that.
And then here's another thing that throws kind of a wrench in all of this is the Jags OC Grant Udinski has pulled his name from the Browns search and is interviewing with the Bills. So it really does seem like waiting on Brian Daboll at this point.
No one wants to be the head coach of the Browns. How funny is that? I mean, is that what, 3 or 4 candidates who have withdrawn their name? Like, I know it happens. And with the news of Mike McCarthy being hired by the Steelers, maybe it's more accurate than we thought that he withdrew his name from Titans consideration. But, man, to have 3 or 4 different guys say, thanks, but no thanks, we don't want to be considered for your job anymore is kind of hilarious. But Udinski, yes, you're right, interviewing with the Bills or interviewed with the Bills yesterday, and he has signed an extension with the Jaguars that, of course, is contingent on whether he gets a head coaching job or not. So Brian Daboll is the guy everybody's talking about, and I think it's a home run hire for me. I think that is exactly what you need if you're the Titans at offensive coordinator. You're bringing in a guy who clearly was a fan of Cam Ward in the draft process. The Giants aren't offering the package that they did to the Titans if they did not feel like Cam Ward was a future franchise quarterback. And a guy who has experience turning a raw but exciting young quarterback into a star. And that's exactly what the Titans need. Someone with experience, somebody who knows what they're doing with a quarterback who's more of a gunslinger. And Cam Ward, I would love Brian Daboll. It just becomes the question of, does he ever make it to Nashville?
I think that's the thinking of you and everybody else. We'd all love Brian Daboll to be the OC. And we really just saw what he did with Josh Allen. And we're all hoping that he can do the same thing with Cam Ward. But the biggest thing is, you hit on this, is the experience part, because Robert Saleh is going to be calling defensive plays, something that he didn't do in New York. So he's going to be the head coach. He's going to be the head coach of the defense. Now he needs somebody to be the head coach of the offense. And I think with Brian Daboll, he was being the head coach in New York, you're overseeing all of it. Now he just gets to focus on the offense if he happens to be here. So I think that is something that will excite a lot of Titans fans. Plus, we think he's a brilliant mind.
And it gives you like the antithesis of the Titans coaching staff under Brian Callahan from year one, of first-time head coach, first-time play caller, first-time OC, first-time DC, first-time special teams coordinator. It's like, I say it all the time, but you can't have everybody learning on the job. I understand that there are times where it makes sense to go get an unproven guy who you think has a high ceiling and can grow into it. But everybody can't be learning on the job. And that's what happened with the Titans. And I really like the idea of Robert Saleh. Been a head coach before, failed, goes 20-36, but has learned from it. Also is a very good defensive mind. All of his defenses have been exceptional for the most part since he has been a defensive coordinator, started in 2017 with the 49ers. And then Brian Daboll, who, again, I wasn't behind as a head coaching candidate, but I do think is maybe the perfect name that you could look for as an offensive coordinator. It does seem like he is verbally agreed to be the Titans offensive coordinator if he doesn't get a head coaching job. All the smoke around it and we're going to play a clip in the next segment of the Titans feel like they're all in on him. But you did mention Cliff Kingsbury, Adam Stenavich have been mentioned. Teron Davenport did say last week that he thinks Kingsbury is a serious contender for the job if Daboll doesn't get it. And Tom Pelissero did report yesterday the Titans interviewing Kingsbury and Stenavich today for the offensive coordinator job. I do wonder how long you wait that's a big question too, because the Raiders, the Browns, the Cardinals, they're still looking for their head coaches. We haven't really heard a whole lot about momentum there. Maybe that starts to pick up with the Rams now eliminated. Chris Shula is available. Vance Joseph is available. Davis Webb is now available after losing in the conference championship games yesterday. So maybe we start to see some movement there. But how long do you wait for Brian Daboll if you do feel like maybe your plan B, plan C could get swept up by other options?
And that's the question that we have to ask, because you're waiting on Brian Daboll, which if you think he's going to be here, okay, but it's also cost you 3 candidates. So you really, I mean, I feel like at this point you have to get him, because who knows how much longer Adam Stenavich is going to be around. Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know what's going to happen with him, but to me personally, and this is just a personal opinion, I'd rather have Brian Daboll than any of them. That's just me.
He is my number one choice. And a lot of it is just the Josh Allen experience, right? Everybody kind of laughs when you say, oh, well, look at Josh Allen's rookie year and how much he struggled and he was able to turn around. Everybody's like, well, if you're comparing your guy to Josh Allen, then maybe he's got some issues that you need to figure out. Because Josh Allen is a unique circumstance of a guy who was inaccurate. There's no other way to put it. He completed 52% of his passes at Wyoming. He was inaccurate. Brian Daboll was able to make him a good quarterback while not taking away the parts of his game that were special. The ability to make plays off script and the running ability of Josh Allen. He was able to maintain all of that while turning him into a good NFL quarterback who can matriculate your offense down the field.
There's our favorite word. Matriculate.
That apparently does not mean what we think it means, but it's been used that way for so long. I really think that Brian Daboll is to use the cliche, he's a slam dunk hire for this team. It's just a matter of whether the Bills, whether the Raiders, who he's interviewing with, whether they think that he is going to be the guy that they need in their organizations. And again, the question is, how long do you wait? We'll talk about that on the other side. The Titans trying to fill out their coaching staff under Robert Saleh, as he is set to be introduced on Wednesday afternoon as it stands right now. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Later on in this hour, Daniel Jeremiah has put out a mock draft, and we will talk about that coming up because it was a very interesting pick. But we'll continue to talk coaching staff on the other side. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, David Janes, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you, and we are now joined live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios by Nick Frazier, who has made it in safely. Nick, how's it going?
We're doing well, gentlemen. Just the roads are pretty much dry as a bone. It's those side roads you got to worry about here if you're in the Nashville area. I'm one of those 230,000 people without power in the area.
Crazy.
So I've just been using a generator and a 100-foot extension cord, plugged it up to a television, and I just basically made my own homemade antenna. So I plugged that into the back of the TV, and it somehow grabbed a signal. So I've been watching some news here and there every 2 to 3 hours.
There you go. Well, glad you were able to make it in safely. And again, hope everybody out there is staying as warm and safe as possible with the winter weather still affecting all of Nashville right now. I mean, you mentioned it, 200,000 people without power is insane. So
let me tell you, if there was ever a zombie apocalypse, I'd want to be with Nick Frazier because that dude knows what he's doing.
Like, Nick Frazier is the jack of all trades that we need in a moment like this. Like,
building his own antenna,
right?
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, if we had to go out into the wilderness and survive, I want Nick Frazier with me.
I'll be there to help assist you both. We'd be okay. I just tell you right now, if you have stuff in your fridge that's starting to thaw, just put it in that ice that's in your yard, and it'll stay cold. I promise you that.
See, I would never have thought of that. And two, Nick Frazier can also slaughter some hogs too if we ever needed it.
Yes, he can. Yes, he can. Why am I blanking on what was the name of your hog?
Oh, skillet. Yes.
Skillet. Yes.
Just say skillet was put on the skillet today and yesterday.
Oh, wow. There you go.
This is what it's for. Look, in times of need, this is what skillet is for.
That's why you buy the pig. So there you go.
I'm going to go out and buy a pig after the show.
I think you might struggle to find any place that's open to buy your pig.
Yeah, man.
Nick Frazier is with us for the rest of the show. Appreciate him braving the conditions to get in there. We're talking Titans coaching staff. Robert Saleh going to be introduced on Wednesday as it stands right now. But when Robert Saleh gets hired, I think immediately everybody's thought is, who's your offensive coordinator? Who is going to develop Cam Ward? And Brian Daboll is the name. Mike Garafolo said yesterday on the NFL Game Day Countdown, said that the Titans want to hire Brian Daboll ASAP. So clearly he is their guy here. He is their number one if he doesn't get a head coaching job. How would you feel, Parker, about the two other options that it seems like there are? And Tom Pelissero did report that Adam Stenavich, Cliff Kingsbury, both interviewing today with the Titans. How would you feel about those plan B and C for the Titans? And how long do you wait before you have to just, cut your losses and say, hey, maybe we really like Stenavich, maybe we really like Kingsbury. He's not Daboll, but we can't risk losing the other one just to wait it out and see if Daboll is going to come.
Right, because you can only afford to wait so much longer for Daboll. As I mentioned, it's already cost you 3 candidates. So he's kind of the apple of your eye right now. But for Cliff Kingsbury, I could see that working with Cam Ward just because the offense that he ran at Texas Tech, kind of that air raid style with Mahomes, and then what he was able to do in Arizona. And I know that didn't work out, but he was also the head coach. And we're talking about a different position being the offensive coordinator where you just have to focus on the offense. And then the type of offense that he was able to bring over to Washington, lots of RPOs, which is good for Cam Ward. And also, too, a lot of the plays, the schemes that Cam Ward ran at Miami under Shannon Dawson, if you think about that, Shannon Dawson came from the Dana Holgorsen tree, which is the air raid to a T. And that's what Cliff Kingsbury specializes in. So I could see that working out just fine. But it seems like it's kind of been Daboll or bust right now for the Titans. And I just don't know how much longer you can wait. But Cliff Kingsbury, I don't think would be a bad consolation prize.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't mind Kingsbury, but I would feel a lot better about Daboll. And I do think he ends up getting to be the OC. As much as I understand why teams might think, oh, well, it didn't work out with New York, maybe it'll work here, or if it's the familiarity for the Bills with Josh Allen and Brian Daboll, I would get it. I think that he probably needs at least a year to go through that, coach rehabilitation cycle where your name gets hot again and you get another job. I don't think he's one of those guys who gets fired and immediately gets swept up by another team. But we'll see. The Bills' decisions have not exactly been based in logic over the last couple of days. So we'll see. Maybe they do want to bring Brian Daboll back.
Or maybe they want to bring in Philip Rivers.
Well, Philip Rivers withdrew his name from consideration for the Bills.
Oh, yeah.
He said it is not the right time for him and his family. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe down the road he gets some looks. We glazed past it a little bit of the Arthur Smith to Ohio State move. I want to get your thoughts on that, because Ohio State heading into next year, Jeremiah Smith's draft year, and you bring back Julian Sayin for a second year as the starter. Do we think Arthur Smith can get the most out of that team? And it's a strange move for Arthur Smith, who's been NFL his entire career, and now he's going to be the OC for Ryan Day.
Yeah, my first reaction was I actually like the move. I think it's hilarious because now both of Ohio State's coordinators have most of their coaching experience in the NFL. But I think, with Matt Patricia, what he's been able to do, that's basically an NFL-style defense at the collegiate level. So I see the exact same thing on the offensive side of the ball with Arthur Smith taking place. I don't really think when we're talking about an alien like Jeremiah Smith, I don't think it matters who you bring in as offensive coordinator. You could bring in Greg Roman, who wants to run the ball 95 times a game, and Jeremiah Smith would still produce.
The jokes about Jonnu Smith I thought were hilarious yesterday. Arthur Smith saw Jay Smith on the roster and thought it was Jonnu and wanted to go back, or Jonnu's going to go the Charles Bediako route and try and get eligibility again so he can go play for Ohio State.
I can't wait to talk about that later, by the way.
We are going to get into that because that was obviously a huge story over the weekend. Bediako returning to Alabama and losing to Tennessee on Saturday. But yeah, it was an interesting move for Arthur Smith. And I think for him, maybe it made sense of his name had gone a little bit cold in coaching circles. Like, he was still getting some interviews for head coaching jobs. He was getting some talk for offensive coordinator jobs. But I think the shine had worn off of Arthur Smith at the NFL level. I think this gives him an opportunity to give himself more options moving forward. You go be the OC at Ohio State. Maybe you find a niche and you can get a head coaching job in a couple of years at the college level, or maybe you develop a bunch of NFL talent and the NFL wants you to come back as a head coach in a couple of years. I think Arthur Smith, this opens more doors for him by going to Ohio State.
I trust Ryan Day a lot. I think he knows what he's doing, and here's why I say that. The Ohio State Buckeyes kind of give me Philadelphia Eagles vibes on the offensive side of the ball, because the Eagles have just been rotating through offensive coordinators. You started with Ryan Day calling plays. Then you moved to Chip Kelly, who's another NFL guy. Then Brian Hartline, and now Arthur Smith. But there hasn't really been much of a drop-off year to year because Ohio State's still been able to produce because they have the caliber players and the talent level to be able to do so. So maybe that is the case with Arthur Smith. He lost a little bit of his shine in the NFL, but there are much worse places to go than Ohio State.
I agree. And I think it could be a nice fresh start there for Arthur Smith, but it is another option for the Titans offensive coordinator off the board. Brian Daboll, I really do think that he is the guy the Titans have circled. They're doing their due diligence elsewhere. And I did see some questions earlier about the Rooney Rule with coordinators. The Titans do have to fulfill that. Paul Kaharski did report yesterday that the Titans have fulfilled the Rooney Rule on the defensive side and will fulfill it by the end of the day today on the offensive side. So they should be able to make a hire sometime soon. I wonder if there's an ultimatum to Brian Daboll at some point of, hey, do you really think you're a serious contender for these jobs? If not, we need an answer ASAP. Like, we need to know within the next 48 hours, are we going to have you as our offensive coordinator? Because if the answer is no, we can't risk losing our other options because there are other OC jobs still open out there. The Eagles kind of feel like the Browns head coaching job right now. No one seems to want that job. over there in Philly. I just saw the Bears offensive coordinator, who again doesn't call plays under Ben Johnson. He withdrew his name from consideration for the Eagles OC job. There are other jobs open. I think the Titans are moderately attractive for an offensive coordinator, but guys aren't going to just wait out there forever, and you don't want to be left holding the bag if Brian Daboll does get a head coaching job.
It's a lesson that I'm sure you grew up with the understanding with. I grew up with the understanding. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You got to spread it out, and you cannot afford to wait so long for Daboll because you don't know what's going to happen because there are still 4 head coaching jobs still available, and there are multiple offensive coordinator spots. So you got to be able to fill that. But with the Eagles, can you blame guys for not wanting to go there? I mean, you don't do well, and those fans are unbearable, and they're unrealistic on top of it. They've just been rotating through them. Yeah.
Right.
So with AJ Brown, it may have not started out as a big deal, but eventually, Jalen Hurts and Saquon and Devontae Smith, they kept being asked about AJ Brown in press conferences. At some point, that does become a distraction. So I'm interested to see if AJ Brown is even on the Eagles next year.
I would agree. And if he's not, we've said it before, I think there's a pretty obvious landing spot for him. His former head coach, who's about to play in the Super Bowl with Mike Vrabel, who could use a number 1 alpha guy for Drake May. And, AJ Brown has had his issues off the field in the locker room. But if there's anybody who probably feels like they can get the most out of AJ Brown, it's Mike Vrabel. So, that Eagles job has seemed to be one of the least attractive jobs out there. What other OC jobs are still open as of right now? Chargers could pivot if Mike McDaniel gets a right.
Right.
But there are still a few jobs open.
The Lions have their guy. They hired Petzing from the Cardinals.
Right. The Commanders hired David Blau, former
Which
Hard Knocks
shocked
legend.
By.
Yeah, that was and they did it quickly too.
Yeah, because he wasn't playing. He was still playing not too long ago.
Right. Zach Robinson is going to the Buccaneers, so maybe there aren't a whole lot of jobs out there that are open. But I really want to see what the Titans are able to do over the next couple of days. I think Daboll is clearly their number 1 guy, and you probably need an answer in the next few. By the end of the week, I would say at the very latest.
Falcons got their guy too. Tommy Rees followed Stefanski.
Yes, yeah, you're right. And the Falcons just hired a special teams coordinator today too.
Who?
Craig Aukerman.
Oh, baby, he's back.
Craig Aukerman, and I think Colt Anderson is on the 49ers staff. So, he was working out there with Robert Saleh. So, luckily, the Titans are retaining Bones Fossil, so don't have to worry about that. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 2765 says, I guarantee that Daboll and Saleh are in constant communication given their friendship, hopefully communicating about the likelihood of Daboll getting a head coaching job. I would agree with that. I don't know the level of friendship. I know that the story is that Daboll, I guess, came over to use Saleh's pool when they were both in New York, but I don't know how close of friends they are. But I would agree with you that the Titans are probably in pretty constant communication with Brian Daboll about this process. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. On the other side, a mock draft has come out this morning, and one from somebody that I tend to follow most closely through the draft process. Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network has put out his first mock draft, and he has a very interesting Titans pick. We'll talk about it coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier with you on this Monday. Again, we'll keep you updated if there are any developments around the weather situation, the power situation. Have not seen anything specifically out there. Have gotten some stories of people getting power back. So hopefully that is going on around the city right now. This morning, I thought it was interesting. Daniel Jeremiah is somebody that I follow pretty closely when it comes to the draft. He's the main draft analyst for the NFL Network on their coverage on draft night. And he put out his first mock draft this morning, and it was not a pick that I expected. So here's how he has the top three going off the board. Fernando Mendoza, number one. I think that's pretty obvious. He has the Jets going with Arvell Reese. I think that might end up being the pick. You go Traitsy, you go high ceiling with the number 2 pick at edge rusher. Then at 3, Spencer Fano, the tackle from Utah. He has the Titans going with Francis Maui-Noa, the tackle from Miami. And that's not something I've seen a ton, but he says this offseason is about helping Cam Ward take the next step, and that starts with doing a better job of protecting him. Maui-Noa has excellent size, strength, and still has room to develop. Parker, your thoughts on a very good player going to the Titans at number 4, but maybe not the position we were all expecting?
Yeah, I am caught off guard by that. Now, I like it. I like Francis Mauigoa. I'm very high on him. I just have concerns about what position he would play because he's a right tackle, and you have J.C. Latham there. So you're not going to move him back to left tackle. You already tried that. J.C. Latham's natural position is right tackle. I don't know if you want to put Francis at left, but also, too, you have Dan Moore there who you paid a lot of money. And doesn't his guarantees and money go up every year, too?
No, it is a clean out after next year. They can cut him with absolutely no dead cap after next year.
Okay, that does change this a little bit. But at the same time, I don't know. I think you'd be better off if you were to draft him, putting him at left tackle, because I think he's more versatile than J.C. Latham is. And if I'm comparing the two, J.C. Latham out of college versus Francis, I'm going Francis. So that is interesting because I did not expect that.
And I would understand it. I think I wouldn't be happy with it. I think a lot of Titans fans, rightfully so, want playmakers. This team is so desperate for playmakers. And you've spent first-round picks on offensive linemen in 3 of the last 6 drafts. So it's like, man, do we really need to take another tackle? You need a left tackle at some point. Dan Moore is going to be gone unless he takes a massive step forward this year. Could happen. Unlikely. Most likely Dan Moore is gone after the 2026 season. So you need to find a left tackle in the next 2 drafts. I don't think you do it at number 4 here, though. I could understand it because you aren't gonna flip J.C. Latham back to left tackle. I when you were talking about that, all I could think of was the Michael Scott dinner party scene of snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. Like, just move J.C. Latham back over from right tackle to left tackle. So if you draft Maui-Noa at 4, he's your left tackle of the future. And yeah, you're flipping him back over to the left side, but he would have a year to settle into that with Dan Moore starting. So the logic there makes sense. I just don't think you do it at 4. I could totally see the Titans being proactive and with your 2nd, your 3rd round pick, taking a tackle if you believe that's the best player on the board, because you do need to figure that position out. Dan Moore is a Band-Aid. He is not a long-term solution. But at 4, think about the other players who are on the board here, who we've talked about. David Bailey, Reuben Bain, the wide receivers, which actually, interestingly enough, Daniel Jeremiah does not have Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson as his first wide receiver off the board. He has Mekhi Lemon going 13th to the Rams.
Dude, I'm telling you, Mekhi Lemon's going to be my draft crush. Once I really start studying these guys, Mekhi Lemon's my favorite right now. I have a feeling that's not going to change. I love Mekhi Lemon.
It seems like he is going to be one of the biggest risers in the draft as the process goes along. But with those edge rushers on the board, I really struggle to take a tackle when you do have the Band-Aid, right? You have the Band-Aid for this year in Dan Moore, who is fine. He's not great. He's not a long-term solution, but he's fine. You need playmakers, whether that's a pass rusher or a wide receiver. You can get through this year without taking that tackle. 2027, if you don't take a tackle this year that you feel like is your next left tackle, then that becomes your number one need heading into 2027. But this year, with where you're drafting and the options you have to be game wreckers on the edge, I just can't see them taking a left tackle.
Yeah, when they made the Robert Saleh hire, and just knowing that he likes to run a 4-3, and the Titans haven't run that since 2013, so 13 years ago was the last time they ran a true 4-3. And considering the lack of depth at edge rusher, to me, I just have a feeling that it's going to be one of three guys: Arvell Reese, David Bailey, or Ruben Bain. That's kind of been my feel on
it. It does feel right now like the Titans should and are going to take a pass rusher. That's where the cream of the crop is, in that fourth pick slot, and that's a position that you have just not invested enough in the last decade. You need to find impact pass rushers. So I do think that, but Daniel Jeremiah has them going tackle. That is a very long-term pick, because yes, you would be able to flip him over to the left side and he'd have a year to learn, but you're also neglecting edge and wide receiver, which are positions that you desperately, desperately need. Caleb on the text line says that mock draft is nothing but Jeremiah ranking the guys in order that he thinks. He almost completely ignored team need. There is zero chance the Titans spend the fourth pick on an offensive line. I probably agree with that. I don't think they're going tackle. But he says you don't take tackle at all. You fill other positions of need, and if you want to replace more, then do it next draft. That would be the ideal scenario, for sure. I think you plan to take tackle early in 2027. But there is a best player available aspect to this of, if you get to the top of the second round and there's been a run on wide receivers and you took an edge rusher fourth and there's a wide receiver that you think it would be a reach to take him. Yeah, you need a wide receiver, but you have a third round grade on him. You're not taking him 35th overall, but there's a tackle who slipped through. Again, this is all hypothetical. I think tackle is a big enough need that you can think proactively and take it in the second or third round if it's the best player on the board. But fourth overall is too high. Fourth overall is too high considering all of the other needs that you have.
Right now, it seems like edge rusher is the right answer. But if we're being honest, the term right answer is so nebulous right now because the Titans have so many positions of need, so many positions of value, that it would not hurt to take the best player available, whether that be a wide receiver. But I don't know if any of these receivers are worth the fourth overall pick. I don't know if in this situation that you take an offensive tackle, because if we're comparing offensive tackle need versus edge rusher need, I would say right now the edge rusher need wins out. So you can make a case for maybe taking another position of value. I also saw a mock draft that has the Titans taking Caleb Downs from Ohio State. So I don't know, but to me right now on January 26th, I think edge rusher is the right answer.
I agree. And on the other side, we will look at some of the other interesting developments in this mock draft. There are some names here that fall a little bit further than I think you'd expect. There are also some names here that I did not expect to see as high as Daniel Jeremiah has them. We'll talk about that. We'll wrap up hour number 2 on the other side. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier, finishing up the second hour of the show today on this Reaction Monday, reacting to Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 1.0 today, and he has the Titans taking a tackle at number 4. Surprising, but again, it's early. I think, as Caleb said, Daniel Jeremiah might be using more of a big board mentality than an actual mock draft. But some other interesting things here, Parker. He has Mansoor Delane going 5th overall to the Giants. I know people like Delane as maybe the top cornerback in this class. I watched plenty of him at Virginia Tech, and I know he had a huge year at LSU. 5th overall feels very, very high.
Not going to happen. And I feel like a lot of these national people, too, because they're national, don't necessarily know the same intricacies that the local people do. So maybe that's, and it's still very early on. So maybe this is just ranking these prospects from best available, how they see it. But yeah, the Mansoor Delane thing is not going to happen. And I'm very skeptical about Francis Maui going to the Titans.
Yeah, and Jeremiah's got David Bailey at 6 to the Browns. Reuben Bain goes 9 to the Chiefs. That wouldn't be fun. And interesting here, Jeremiah has both Tennessee cornerbacks going in the top 12. Jermod McCoy, 10 to the Bengals. Colton Hood, 12th to the Cowboys. TD and I have been talking about Colton Hood as a possible day 2 get for the Titans. Daniel Jeremiah, very high on Hood.
I saw a mock draft that had Jermod McCoy going as high as 3.
I saw that too.
And he didn't play last year. So that's kind of the thing. But I guess Jamar Chase didn't play his final year at LSU either. So I don't know. Colton Hood, that does surprise me, him going that high. I definitely think he could work himself into the first round conversation. Absolutely. And who knows, maybe he could slip to day 2. But Jermod McCoy is 100% going in the first round. Colton Hood, top 12 is a bit of a stretch for me, but I could see him going first round as well.
Jeremiah also has Cassius Howell going 15th to the Buccaneers. That's another
I
one
guess
of
that makes
these
sense.
Guys.
Yeah.
Carnell Tate goes 16 to the Jets. Akeem Messidor 17 to the Lions. Here's a name I haven't seen yet, and we'll finish with this one. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, Toledo safety, going 18th to Minnesota.
Hey, Toledo's pumping them out. All right.
How about Toledo having
secondary?
Having 2 first-round secondary picks in 3 years?
Hey, I mean, I haven't really watched him yet, so I don't know. But
right.
Toledo's pumping them out. Shout out the Rockets.
It is early in draft season, but Daniel Jeremiah did just put out his first mock draft. Again, a little bit shocking. Titans taking Francis Maui Noah, tackle from Miami, 4th overall. Don't think that's what ends up happening, but it's something we haven't seen in a lot of mock drafts so far. Especially with Dan Moore still having another guaranteed year on his contract. So we'll see. Long way to go till draft time. We are still just about 3 months away. Before we wrap up hour number 2, I wanted to bring this up because I could not look away on Saturday night from the Skyscraper live on Netflix. Did you guys end up watching that?
I didn't end up watching it. I'm going to have to go back and watch because I heard it was nuts.
Nick, did you watch any of it?
I did not. I was preoccupied watching the UFC 324 card, which lived up to expectation.
Yeah, I did hear that it was good. It was what, Gaethje and Pimblett?
Yeah, incredible 5 rounds.
When did Sugar Sean go?
He was the co-main event right before Pimblett and Gaethje.
Gotcha.
So this Skyscraper thing, I was not going to tune in. I had absolutely no interest, but I was getting texts about it. And so I started watching. I said, all right, I'll watch 5 minutes of this. And I just couldn't turn it off. I watched for the full 2 hours. It is great television. And because you're so scared of, are they actually going to show this guy falling on live television, right? Like, he is free soloing this skyscraper, which means no ropes. It is just him climbing I want to say that I forget how many stories they said, but in Taipei, climbing this building with no ropes. There is no plan if he falls. And I think it probably was easier for him than they made it out to be, right? I think that he probably was very confident in his abilities to do it. But watching it and knowing that, like, if he falls, what are they going to do? Are they going to cut the feed? Like, all it takes, as good as he is of a climber, as good as he is, all it takes is one false step, and they're going to show him falling to his death on live TV, or they're going to have to cut the broadcast. I could not look away. One of the most impressive human feats I have ever seen. I mean, he climbed it, barely took any breaks, went up in an hour and 45 minutes, stood up on the top of this rounded, like, antenna at the top, and took a selfie. And he's just like, oh man, I'm super psyched. This is sick. I'm like, brother, you just climbed an entire building all by yourself in less than 2 hours. And you're just like, yeah, I'm psyched. This is really cool.
So I have two thoughts on this. What's the guy's name again? How do you say it?
Alex Honnold, I want to say.
Honnold? Okay, so we have to have a serious discussion about him being in the conversation for greatest athlete of all time. If you're able to climb a building in less than 2 hours, no rope, no harness, just free, soloing that. Second of all, I watched Running Man for the first time last week.
I watched it this weekend too.
Yes. So I watched it for the first time, and I had this thought while I was watching, would we ever get to the point in society where we'd have, like a Hunger Games type TV show air on national television where people are dying? I think this is the closest we've gotten to that, because one misstep, one wrong, grab, as he's climbing up top, and he's dead.
I could not look away. 1,700 feet is the height of this building. Taipei 101.
How many stories is that?
101 floors.
Goodness gracious. So what'd you think of Running Man?
I thought it was good. I thought it was good. I mean, it was supposed to be like this kind of post-apocalyptic Hunger Games type of thing of like, they're gonna hunt you for sport. But you're right. It did give me that kind of feel watching that of like, there's no way they're gonna show, like, he has to be 100% confident he can do this because it's live. Like, I'm sure that they have a delay and they can cut the feed and they're not going to just, show everything, but things can go wrong. No matter how confident you are, you can do something. Things can go wrong. It was wildly impressive. My heart was racing in bed. Like, I was ready to go to bed early on Saturday night. We had a huge game yesterday, Vandy in South Carolina. So I wanted to get some rest, be prepared. And I could not fall asleep after that. Like, it was riveting. So I had no interest in it when I heard about it. I'm glad I tuned in because it was great television.
I was too busy watching Tennessee and Alabama, but I did see that it was going on, and I saw a little bit of the highlights afterwards and how his wife was up, way top, taking pictures while he was literally outside the window. Nuts, just absolutely nuts.
And then at the end, he got to a point where he just was holding on with his legs around like a ring and went no hands. And I'm like, all right, you're just a crazy person.
He knows at that point, like, he knows what he's doing.
I mean, he's just showing off. Caleb on the text line says it was insane. The craziest part was how he just stood on top like he was just standing on the sidewalk. Yeah, that was the craziest part for me, was that he had zero fear. Even when he got to the top, like, my question was like, how are you getting down? Getting down seems scarier than getting up. And he just stood up there, and then he just goes, all right, I think I'm going to go down now. And went down, took the elevator to the bottom.
So how did he get down? Did he like climb into a window and then take the elevator down?
No, so they did put a harness up there for him to rappel down at the end.
Okay.
So he did get some help getting down, and then I think once he got to an actual floor, he could take the elevator. But crazy stuff.
Because that would have been crazy if they made him climb all the way back down. I was hoping that wasn't the case. So I'm glad to hear that.
5496 says, I think Alex Honnold free solo climbing El Capitan is even more impressive. He was the first to ever do it. I'm not familiar. I got to say, I had no idea that free soloing was this big thing. But oh yeah, I'm looking at El Capitan now. It's basically just a flat sheet of rock that he climbed up. So unbelievable stuff. I had to bring
maybe the greatest athlete of all time.
I mean, it was ridiculous. The amount of strength and endurance that he had to have to do it over and over and keep climbing. And some of the hardest things he had to do were at the end. He had to like hang just by his hands, not using his feet on an overhang, and lift himself up to get up onto these platforms.
How do you even train for that? How do you train your body for that?
So they were showing him that he was doing on like a pull-up bar, like he would not only pull up, but like lift himself up to get into it.
Basically,
like,
muscle up.
Right. I was astounded by him doing that. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Really impressive stuff on Saturday night. There was another event on Saturday night that Parker was just talking about, Alabama and Tennessee, and some controversy, to say the least, with Alabama's roster. We will talk about it coming up next. Hour number 3 of Next Man Up right around the corner. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier with you on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final hour on this Monday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Been a fun show so far. Again, thinking of everyone out there without power. I've seen some more stories of power coming back, so hopefully that continues throughout the day. I know some of the roads not doing great out there, so everybody stay safe, stay warm, and we will give you updates if we have any right here on the show. But Parker, we got to talk about some of the controversy over the weekend. Alabama and Tennessee squaring off down in Tuscaloosa, and Charles Bediako, a 23-year-old who just a little over a week ago was playing for a G League team, the Motor City Cruise. And he is now playing for the Alabama Crimson Tide again, thanks to a judge's ruling giving him a temporary restraining order to join the team. He has another hearing on Tuesday that will decide, I believe, whether he can play for the rest of the season. But the NCAA needs to get a hold on this quickly. I know there's nothing they can do about a judge's ruling, but they've got to get some congressional help of some sort to protect college sports because, man, things are starting to slip with some of the rulings that have come down recently.
This is not going to be a popular segment, Jake. I apologize in advance. But what happened on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa is unacceptable. It cannot happen. And the fact that the NCAA kind of lost, for lack of a better term, to a local circuit judge with the temporary restraining order. Here's what I think is happening with the NCAA. I think that by them constantly getting taken to court and them constantly losing, and what just happened with Charles Bediako, they put out a statement that they're basically calling for Congress to intervene. And I know I can already picture everybody that's out there listening just starting to vomit when I mention the words government and college athletics, because in this perfect world, we would never have those two intermix. I think there is a need for it right now because what just happened with Charles Bediako coming back for his second stint in college, it just cannot happen. And he was a major impact in the game on Saturday.
No, and it's the NCAA. I agree that some of the things they've done have led to this. The issues with college sports and the NIL era, they opened up the floodgates with absolutely no plan of how to contain everything. But they're not a governing body. Like, they can make rules and regulations, but if they get taken to court and lose, there's nothing that they can do.
Constantly.
And that's why, right. And they don't win a whole lot of court cases, the NCAA. They are usually viewed as the bad guys. But in this case, you've got to protect college sports. And I blame the coaches. I do. There needs to be some sort of standard of, hey, you got into this for a reason. That's to help young athletes realize their dreams. Charles Bediako made the decision to go and play pro. He has to live with that. And I know Nate Oates is trying to say, well, if they're letting James Najee play at Baylor, why shouldn't Charles be allowed to play? And I want to do what's best for him. But is that what's best for your current and future student athletes, is to open the floodgates for these pro players to come back and play? Because John Calipari put it out there, and I don't typically agree with a lot of the things John Calipari says, but who's going to recruit high school athletes anymore? Why would you in college basketball when the transfer portal is going to give you guys who you can plug and play right into your lineup and you don't have to worry about developing them? And you could just go get some of the players in the G League who don't think they're going to make it with an NBA team, and boom, there's your roster. Who needs 18-year-olds that need time to develop? We'll let the mid-majors do that, and then we'll take them when they're finished products. That's not what college sports was meant to be. And the NCAA, there's not much they can do. Again, if they get a court order saying that he's allowed to play, they can't just say, no, you're not allowed to play. So as much as I hate to say it, and I agree with you, you don't want the government getting too involved with college sports, but that's the only way things are going to change, is if Congress is able to pass something that is able to set defined guidelines that don't send all of these cases to court every single year with these players trying to get extra eligibility when they shouldn't. sure, there are some cases where the NCAA has not given athletes a fair shake in terms of waivers, right? It's gone on forever of the NCAA has withheld eligibility for too long. But now that the courts are telling them basically, hey, yeah, they're allowed to play. We don't care. The floodgates are opening up, and we need to see this change fast. And I really don't see, without Congress getting involved, I don't see a solution for this.
And we've seen the philosophy kind of change in basketball where, you remember the days of John Calipari at Kentucky and Bill Self at Kansas, where they recruit these 5-star freshmen and they come in right away and they produce and their teams are great. Now the philosophy, since NIL and transfer portal has been introduced, it's about, get old, stay old. And I thought the conversation on College Game Day on Saturday morning was fantastic because the age when people were throwing this, well, Charles Bediako is 23, he could still play. I think that's such a bad faith argument because that's not what this is about. It's about when you decide to go pro, you forego the rest of your eligibility and you should not be allowed to return. That's the decision you made as an adult. These guys are making millions of dollars. And with millions of dollars, you got to make big boy decisions. You went pro, you forwent the rest of your eligibility. It's about principle. And sure, this is the 5th case we've seen of a guy going pro or playing overseas and coming back to college in major college basketball. And those guys typically have not produced a lot, or at least they haven't yet. Charles Bediako did, but that's not what this is about either. It's about the principle of you can't allow these guys to return back to college basketball. That's what it's about.
Right. I forget who it was. Somebody was making the point of, well, these guys aren't even that good, and looking around and saying, look at these former pro-European guys who have come over. For Virginia Tech, who I follow, Neoclis Abdalis was supposed to be this star, and he's kind of been – he hasn't been horrible, but he hasn't been the star that everybody expected him to be. James Najee has been maybe the worst player on Baylor's team this year.
1.7 points per game.
But it's not the point. It's not the point. I don't care what they're doing. They should not be allowed to play. It's not about how good they are. It's about what they've done. Charles Bediako signed a G League contract. For the history of college athletics, that has stopped you from playing college athletics anymore. You sign a pro contract, you are no longer an amateur, you cannot play college sports anymore. NIL has muddied the waters here where it's like, well, they're not amateurs anymore because the revenue sharing has basically made it pay for play of these schools are paying these players directly. They're not amateurs. They're professionals when they're playing college basketball. So what's the difference between signing a rev share agreement with Alabama and signing a G League contract with Motor City? That's the argument they're making. But at that point, why not just make college sports a minor league? Why not just separate from the NCAA and say, hey, it's minor league sports now, and we're just going to feed into the NBA and the NFL and the MLB and all of these different places?
I really think that's what it's become because to me right now, there's not much of a gap, if any, between what the G League is. I think the G League's dead. I don't think it exists anymore. And college basketball. I believe you're paying them millions of dollars. Brennan Sorsby's making $5 million to go to Texas Tech. You're paying $5 million for a guy that wasn't even in contention for Big 12 Player of the Year. So that just kind of shows you where the sport is. So I don't really know where we go from here, but I can tell you what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to get to the point where the NCAA, for all of you that have seen The Blind Side, do you remember that scene when Michael Orr was getting interrogated by the NCAA and how on the edge of the seat everybody was watching that? It used to be when the NCAA came knocking at your door, that was the equivalent to the feds. Now, nobody even cares anymore. The NCAA doesn't have a spine. They can't enforce rules. They get taken to court and they lose. So what I think is going to happen is the conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten, maybe the ACC and Big 12, they're going to start governing themselves. That's what I think we're going to get to, and I hate to admit that.
And it's funny. You mentioned that the NCAA just it feels like they've lost any kind of credibility or respect. Dabo Swinney literally just in front of everybody said Pete Golding is tampering. He just stole one of our players. In the past, if there was a recruiting violation of that magnitude where a coach is calling you out and saying he paid our player to break his contract and come to Oxford, there would be conversations of like, man, is Ole Miss going to get the death penalty here? Like, that's a serious recruiting violation. Like, that's something that would get serious infractions. Is the NCAA really going to do anything about it? I haven't heard anything of like the NCAA is investigating this. It is a recruiting violation. It's tampering, as Dabo said, it's tampering 301. Like they've got to get a handle on all of this right now. And it feels like the NCAA has basically just thrown their hands up in the air and said, until Congress does something, there's nothing we can do.
And part of me believes that is what they're going for. Like, they want to keep losing so that Congress can come in and say, hey, the NCAA, if they make a rule, you have to go with it. But I don't know how that's going to go down. And also, too, where was Greg Sankey in all this? Right. While Charles Bediako was coming back where was Greg Sankey? Because I didn't hear a peep from him.
I have not heard much from anybody except for Nate Oates about Charles Bediako. And it's a tough look for college athletics. It is falling apart as we watch on in real time. They've got to get a handle on it. But again, it's tough to call on the U.S. government to fix things, but that seems to be the only option at this point if they're actually going to make any real change. College athletics, the next big development is going to be tomorrow of Charles Bediako has that next hearing. If he's allowed to play for the rest of the season, I think you're going to get a lot of former athletes, professionals who come out of the woodwork and say, guess what? I want to go back to college too. And we can talk about that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier, next man up, 125 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier. Nice one coming back here from Nick Frazier as we're talking about the NIL world of college athletics and pro players making their way back into the college athletic ranks. A couple quick updates. Mike McDaniels officially is the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. So there was the question of would he get a head coaching job? The Chargers just tweeted and made it official about 15 minutes ago that he will be the next offensive coordinator under Jim Harbaugh. Also, we were talking during the break, Parker, of how far Vandy women's basketball might fall in the polls. They did not fall. Vandy stays at number 5, despite the loss to
Good.
Carolina yesterday. So still in the top 5, which I think it's fair. 20-1, and your only loss is against an angry South Carolina team after a loss on their home floor. So Vandy women's basketball will be back in action later this week at Ole Miss. I am still out on the road, but appreciate everybody tuning in with us today as we make things work here for the show from 9 to noon. We were having the conversation about Charles Bediako and him returning, playing for Alabama on Saturday night. He has another hearing tomorrow that I believe will decide whether he can play for the rest of the season. And I wonder, do we see this start to spread to other sports? Like basketball has been the breeding ground for it. Of you've had Najee and you've had Bediako, guys who have signed pro contracts, coming back and playing for a college team. I start to wonder if baseball is next, of these guys who maybe they think that they're going to get drafted early as juniors, and that you don't have to declare for the draft, I don't even think, in baseball, but you can get drafted. Maybe you sign, you get a good signing bonus, but maybe rookie ball is a little bit tough for you and you're not cracking it. You're hitting like 175 and you're like, yeah, sounds pretty good to head on back to Mississippi State or wherever and go play college baseball again. I know the NIL money isn't quite as lucrative in baseball, but I do wonder if this starts to spread to other sports, if the judges continue to uphold that Charles Bediako and these other pro players can come back and play college basketball.
Well, Jake, I don't think you can rule it out of the realm of possibility, because if we're just being honest, we're all having an authentic discussion here about the future of college athletics. We don't know, because 6 months ago, did we think that we would be talking about what we saw with Charles Bediako? I don't think so.
No.
So I don't think that we can we can't rule it out. We cannot rule it out. And I think you're right. I think baseball would probably be next in line. It's a little bit harder to do that with football. I think baseball is probably next, but I sure hope we don't get to that point. But here's the hoping, right?
Yeah, football's made it a little bit clearer of a line of like you declare for the draft, that's it. But we thought that previously held standards in basketball would hold up, and I do wonder if they don't get help from Congress, could you get to the point where undrafted rookies come back? Like that's something that I think might be a domino that's sooner than you think of. Yeah, maybe it would be tough to use Quinn Ewers as an example. Quinn Ewers was, he has said that he had multi-million-dollar offers on the table to stay in college football and transfer away from Texas. He ended up being a 7th-round pick. I think it would be a little bit tougher to get drafted and then come back. But what about some of these undrafted guys? Let's say you go out as a junior, you feel like you're going to be a draft, but you have a bad combine. Xavier Restrepo was out of eligibility, I believe, but like a similar performance like that, where you declare for the draft thinking you're a 2nd or a 3rd round pick, and you run a 4.6 40 or 4.7 40, and you fall, you go undrafted. Do we start to see some of those guys take it to a court and say, I want to go back and play my final year of eligibility? I don't think that's too far out of the realm of possibility over the next couple of years.
No. And so it was funny because on Friday, I talked to a former FBS coach, and I asked them, if there were a commissioner of college athletics, and I don't know if you could have a commissioner to govern all sports. I don't know if that's a kind of an individual basis where you go football, basketball, and so on, the Olympic sports. And he kind of explained the process to me. It has to go through the Power 4 conferences first, and then you got to go to the presidents. Coaches have to get on board. So it's a really long process that I just do not see that being easy. a smooth transition whatsoever. So I don't know. I really don't know, but I like to use this analogy. And I'm sure, your mom, when you were a kid, told you, hey, Jake, don't put your hand on the stove when it's hot, when the burner's on. Hey, Dr.
Right.
Crane, I'm sure your mom told you too. Don't put your hand on the stove when it's hot. My mom told me the same thing. If you turn the burner on and you put your hand on the stove, at first it's not going to be hot, but eventually over time, it's going to get to the point where you take your hand off. With college athletics, when people throw the ratings around, oh, well, the national championship game got over 30 million viewers. That's fantastic. Right. And college football, in terms of popularity and viewership, is in a great spot. But 5 years down the road with the decisions, these drive-by leadership decisions that are being made constantly, will college football, will college sports in general, be as popular as it was? You can't say with certainty that it will be.
No, that's a very good point. It's, the FAFO of all of this, of like, you're gonna do all of these trials and try and get guys back in. You're gonna find out at some point that this is going to ruin the product that you're trying to improve. Like, sure, the ratings can keep going up, and maybe it works for a little bit, but eventually you're gonna take your hand off that stove because it's not going to be college athletics anymore. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you have any thoughts on this. Again, I reading in this CBS Sports article, I believe the next trial for Bediako is tomorrow. Yes, Bediako has another hearing Tuesday to determine if this was a one and done back into college football or if he can stick with this Alabama team through the remainder of the season. So we will see. Could be a landmark decision when it comes to former pro athletes coming back and playing college athletics. A couple of thoughts here. One on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We were talking about the draft earlier on, and Ron asked, if Jeremiah Love is still there by round 2, do you take him or still go after a team need? No, you take Jeremiah Love if he's sitting there for you at the top of the second round.
Yeah, no second thoughts about that.
Yeah, like I don't want it to come off like we don't like Jeremiah Love or Caleb Downs or Francis Mauigoa as prospects, but you do, as much as you don't want to draft for needs specifically, you do have to look at what your roster needs the most and say, okay, yeah, if this guy is head and shoulders above, but he's not a position of need, we'll take him. And that's what Jeremiah Love would be if he fell all the way to 35. It's not going to happen. But if he fell all the way to 35, he would be the best prospect on the board by a mile. And you don't pass that guy up to take a wide receiver just because you need one. And I think teams in front of you would have that same mindset, and that's why he wouldn't get to 35. David Brown on the YouTube chat says Arthur Smith will replace Belichick at UNC. I saw that about an hour ago when we were having the offensive coordinator conversation, and I actually think that's a really good thought. He's a UNC alum. He's going back into the college realm as an offensive coordinator, where I struggle to see them having too many issues offensively, right? Like, I think, Parker, I think you could be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State next year. And with Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith, I think they'd be okay. So I think Arthur Smith, you'll raise your value in the college realm this year. If they move on from Bill Belichick, which I think would therefore probably null and void the agreement to have Steve Belichick be the next head coach, Arthur Smith would make a whole lot of sense as the next coach of the Tar Heels.
And I think it would be I think it would be fantastic. And I'll do you one further. I think you could play quarterback at Ohio State and Jeremiah Smith would still have 1,000 yards.
I don't know about that. Maybe you, as the former college quarterback, me, the 12th grade quarterback, or 12-year-old quarterback in 5th grade.
It's all experience, right? So
we did win 2 games that year. So out of 10. So my overall record as a quarterback was not very good. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Again, hope everyone is staying warm, staying safe out there. We are keeping our eye on social media and the news to see if there's any developments. But again, hopefully power being turned back on soon. Make sure you're not traveling unless you have to. As I know that some of the roads are looking better, but obviously there is still some tough spots out there. So make sure you're being safe, and we're here all day long to keep you informed, keep you updated here on the Game Nashville Sports Network. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We've got 30 minutes left in the show. We're going to look back at the coaching carousel. Titans waiting on some dominoes to fall for their coaching staff. We dove into Brian Daboll earlier. He's still a candidate for the Bills, the Raiders as a head coach. If he doesn't get those, likely coming to Nashville as the OC. But another chair was filled in the head coaching carousel this week. Mike McCarthy, the next head coach of the Steelers. We'll talk about it coming up next and much more. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier with you on this Monday. Chase and Big Joe coming up at the top of the hour. We got a couple more segments with you. A couple updates here. One traffic update I-65 north at I-440, that interchange is shut down right now. It looks like the sign, the traffic sign has fallen. And so I-65 north is closed. So make sure you're careful if you're heading up north towards Nashville. And also Robert Saleh's introductory press conference has been pushed back. It will now be Thursday at 2 p.m. instead of Wednesday. Makes sense with the weather, gives them an extra 24 hours to hopefully get everything in order and introduce Robert Saleh. That will now be Thursday at 2 p.m. So we have to wait at least 24 hours longer. We'll see if there are any more updates to that. But speaking of the head coaching market, 6 jobs have been filled, and that was finalized this weekend. Mike McCarthy, the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And anyone who's listened to the show knows that I really liked Mike McCarthy. He was my top option for the Titans in this cycle. But just because I think he was a great fit for the Titans does not mean I think he was a great fit for the Steelers. Not quite understanding why Pittsburgh felt like Big Mike was the guy that they needed with the current state of that roster and that franchise.
Yeah, I'm with you. I did like Mike McCarthy. I like the idea of him coming to Nashville to be the Titans head coach. For the Steelers, though, it seems like much of the same because you move on from Mike Tomlin and then you hire Mike McCarthy, which for more or less is a lateral move, might even be a step down. The good news is he's worked with Aaron Rodgers before, but how much more does Aaron Rodgers have in the tank if you bring him back on another one-year deal? He is 42 after all. The thing that's plagued the Steelers has not been their defense, really. Their defense wasn't as good last year as it has been, but it's still been consistent throughout, Mike Tomlin's career. They've been able to run the football decently well, but it's been quarterback because it's just been kind of a carousel. You bring guys in who are about the same, level of talent. So if you bring Aaron Rodgers in for another year, okay, that may buy you some time, but eventually you got to answer the quarterback position. You have to bring in a young guy who with talented upside. I'm not sure Will Howard is that, although they're optimistic that he can be. So you gotta figure that out because, or else it's just going to be much of the same in Pittsburgh.
Well, and that's where I am with this is you've been living in mediocrity where you're not good enough to win the Super Bowl, but you're too good to ever have a chance to pick high and get your quarterback of the future. And the reason I liked Mike McCarthy for the Titans is because I felt like he was the safest option on the market. This is a guy who has been a consistent winner with the Packers, with the Cowboys. They're a 10 to 12 win team every year. And that's what the Titans should be striving to get back to. Put yourself back in the conversation. The Steelers live in the conversation every single year. They're always in the thick of things, battling for a playoff spot. Mike McCarthy, I think, is going to keep them right there. But they're not going to be good enough to win the Super Bowl, most likely, until they figure out quarterback. And they're not going to be bad enough to figure out quarterback with Mike McCarthy as your head coach. The Steelers, they have had success the last 2 times they made a coach. I mean, they've only had 3 coaches since 1969, now 4. The last 2 times, they went with kind of off-the-radar young defensive guys. High ceiling, low floor. Both of them won Super Bowls for Pittsburgh. So I felt like they were going to go in a similar direction of go get that lottery ticket guy, and maybe you hit 3 times in a row, and you get a Super Bowl winning head coach who can turn things around, and you guys immediately enter that AFC conversation. Or he flames out, you fire him in 2 years, you pick your quarterback at the top of the first round in the next 2 seasons. The Steelers they're in kind of a similar situation to where the Predators have been. Obviously, the Steelers' historical success, but of just living in that murky middle where you need to take that step backwards to take 2 steps forward, or you're just going to stay at 9-8, 10-7 every single year and never actually put yourself in the conversation to win a Super Bowl.
And I've had this conversation with many Steelers fans, but with Mike Tomlin in particular, I said that you needed to have a mutual parting of ways because I think a guy with that pedigree and what all he's been able to do and how much he's respected by the team in particular, you don't fire a guy like that. But there needs to be a parting of ways because what is the standard in Pittsburgh? It is Super Bowls. It is not being in the murky middle. It is not settling for mediocrity. It is not just okay, we're just good enough to make the playoffs, but then we lose. That's not the standard in Pittsburgh. The standard is Super Bowls. So at some point, the message may have gotten stale. I think the message got stale with Harbaugh in Baltimore. I think maybe the message might have gotten stale with Sean McDermott. You have to bring in a guy who is a little bit younger than Mike McCarthy, because the coaches that have been around in Pittsburgh since 1969, you mentioned the 3 that have been there, none of them have lasted less than 15 years. Mike McCarthy is certainly older, and he's not going to make it 15 years.
Yeah, I don't think he's coaching into his late 70s.
Yeah, it's just more of the same. And that's the thing that bugs me about Pittsburgh, because that's not the standard there.
Right. No, I think you make a very good point that the reason that fans got tired of Tomlin is because he gets you there into the playoffs, but he wasn't winning. I saw the stat or the story yesterday of, since the Steelers' last playoff win, the Patriots have won a Super Bowl, drafted Mac Jones, moved on from Mac Jones, hired Gerard Mayo, fired Gerard Mayo, hired Mike Vrabel, drafted another first-round pick quarterback, and gone to another Super Bowl. Like, that's how long it's been since the Steelers have won a playoff game. And you're right, they've got 6 Super Bowls. They want to win championships in Pittsburgh. Not that everybody doesn't want to win championships, but that is the standard. Like you said, that is what the expectation is in the Steel City, is that the Steelers are going to be Super Bowl contenders. And they haven't been for the last 8 years. So you bring in Mike McCarthy, and I feel like you're just prolonging the suffering, as much as you want to call it that. Like, I get it. Steelers fans shouldn't have much room to complain. They're in the playoffs every year, whatever. But that's not their expectation. You are just prolonging exactly what Mike Tomlin was doing for another, 5-6 years, until maybe Mike McCarthy retires, maybe his message gets stale, and then you're going to have to do it all again. And you probably still have not had the opportunity to go pick your quarterback of the future, unless something just falls into your lap, whether that's a reclamation project, Malik Willis, Will Levis, Kyler Murray, something like that, or, a Brock Purdy situation, which is obviously far less likely. Of, you pick a guy late, maybe it's Will Howard, maybe it's somebody they get in the next couple of years that comes in and is a franchise quarterback. I wouldn't be, putting my trailer on either of those plans at quarterback if I'm the Steelers. Eventually, you have to pick a quarterback high in the draft. And with Mike McCarthy, I don't get how you get there unless you trade up and mortgage your future to go get that top pick.
And they're never bad enough to pick high, but they're never good enough, where, they're picking in the high 20s or 30s. At least they haven't been for the last 8 years. But I think of their counterparts in the AFC North and the Baltimore Ravens, where I'm not going to sit here and act like I know if the decision to fire Harbaugh was the right or wrong decision, but I at least applaud them for going and getting Jesse Minter, who actually is from the Harbaugh tree. And even before that, he was a defensive assistant at Vanderbilt. And then he went to the Ravens, right, followed Jim to Michigan, followed Jim to LA, and now taking over for John in Baltimore. That's a young, promising, up-and-coming coach who may change up the messaging a little bit in the locker room. So we'll see how that works out for him. But I feel like in Pittsburgh, at some point, you got to take a big swing on a coach. You cannot keep settling for mediocrity just because it's not the standard.
And maybe they do the Kenny Pickett thing again. And I don't know where Ty Simpson is projected to get picked, but maybe he's a guy. Where are the Steelers picking this year? 21st-ish?
That sounds about right, yeah.
They are picking 21st. Man, got it right on the dot.
But does Ty Simpson fall to 21? That's like, maybe.
Right, I don't know. But, that's what seems like the logical plan for the Steelers, is either you go get one of the who knows guys, trade for Will Levis, trade for Kyler Murray, sign Malik Willis to a 2 or 3 year deal. Maybe you do that, or you try and take a quarterback who you think is more of a project and have him compete with Will Howard next year. I don't know, but the Steelers going to the Super Bowl has way more to do with finding the right quarterback than it does of keeping your coach who has a high floor, right? Like, you bring in a coach who completely flames out and fails in 2 years, at least you're probably picking high enough where you can get a quarterback. Like, the Steelers needed boomer bust, and they went with floor. And that's why I like Mike McCarthy as the Titans, because the Titans needed the safe hire, not boomer bust. They went with boomer bust with Callahan, and it busted. The Steelers, I felt like they were in that spot of Tomlin's gone. Let's go try and find somebody who can elevate us, and they just didn't do it. But anyway,
yeah, and you don't really get comfortable, or you don't really grow when you're comfortable. You at some point you do have to take a big swing to kind of get out of this lull that you've been in. And if that big swing doesn't work out, well, it may not, but at least you took a big swing. Because would you rather take a big swing and it work out for you, or you just kind of stay right there where you've been?
Right. And I saw Steelers fans were pretty upset about the hire, and I think they wanted that big swing. For me, like, it's not the worst hire in the world. I do like Mike McCarthy, but for that team, it just never made sense. But as most people have pointed out now, Mike McCarthy, you could put his team resume up against anybody else in all of sports in terms of his historical significance. The head coach of the Packers, the Cowboys, and the Steelers now. Also, was he the OC or the quarterbacks coach for the 49ers before he got the Packers job? It was one of the two, because
I think he was the OC.
He was part of the decision-making team that decided to take Alex Smith over Aaron Rodgers at 1, and then obviously a couple years later goes and turns Aaron Rodgers into an MVP and a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
So it may work with them again.
Right. Who knows? This at least leaves the door open for Aaron Rodgers to return in Pittsburgh. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We've got one more segment on this Monday. We'll wrap up the show on the other side, looking at the other coaching openings that are still out there. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, Nick Frazier, wrapping up the show on this Monday. Again, keeping you updated on any developments around Nashville with the winter weather. Hope everybody is staying safe, staying warm, and hope power coming back for those of you who lost it around Nashville. I know 200,000, crazy number impacted by the power outages. So make sure to keep it tuned right here, The Game Nashville Sports Network, 1025 The Game, for all of your updates throughout the day. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. Final segment on the show here. Parker, 4 openings still out there in the coaching market. You've got the ones that have been open since the beginning. The Browns, the Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Buffalo Bills are all still open. And speaking of the Bills, I was just thinking about this during the break. Have you seen anything linking Sean McDermott to any of these jobs?
Not to my knowledge, no.
That feels strange. Like maybe he wants to take a year off. And I guess that could be what he's telling these teams. But man, out of the guys who are still out there as head coaching candidates, Sean McDermott should be number 1 by a mile. I think it's strange that we haven't seen any links, any reported interviews of Sean McDermott in Arizona, Vegas, or in Cleveland.
And you look at Sean McDermott's resume, and despite how it ended in Buffalo, he's accomplished much more than a lot of these candidates have. You at least got to do your due diligence and bring him in for an interview.
Yeah. And on the YouTube chat, Steffi Knuckles says the report is he will probably take a year off, and it came out yesterday. So I must have missed that with Sean McDermott. So I guess he's taking a year off. But the other 4 jobs still open. I wouldn't be shocked if one of those dominoes falls somewhat soon. Now that Chris Shula is available, he's been a very hot name, got a lot of interview requests, got a lot of second interview requests. He's now eligible to go and do in-person interviews. I wouldn't be shocked if sometime this week maybe he gets a job. And then Davis Webb is another one of those hot names, only 30 years old. Feels like he was a quarterback in the league like 6 months ago. But maybe those are 2 of the names out there. And I know Clint Kubiak, after the performance he put on last night and what he's done throughout the year, he's a hot name. You just wonder how long these teams are going to be willing to wait for their head coaches to come available.
Yeah, you can't really afford to wait right now, especially when the job openings are starting to dwindle. Man, though, Clint Kubiak, that's kind of what I worry about with the Titans. You know, you hire a defensive mind. Seattle has a defensive mind and Mike McDonald. What happens if you bring in a Dayball or you bring in a Cliff Kingsbury or whoever you bring in and they have success right away? Do they get hired away quickly? That's kind of what I worry about with the Seahawks, because Clint Kubiak is going to be getting a lot of interviews. If not, if he doesn't take one now, he'll probably take one next year. So I just kind of worry how that plays out.
Yeah, I think it's really strange that we haven't seen a whole lot of smoke around these other jobs. The Browns one, we talked about it earlier. No one wants that job. I've seen at least 3 names say, hey, sorry, I'm not interested. I guess Udinsky just pulled out. He was one of the names we had heard. Jim Schwartz, of course, is still in there. I did see this morning that they're looking into Shieldhouse, the Rams passing game coordinator, who's gotten a good amount of interviews. Maybe that's the pairing that you look for. If they can retain Jim Schwartz as the DC and then bring in Shieldhouse as your head coach, I mean, that could be a good move for the Browns. But outside of that, these other 3 jobs, it doesn't seem like there's any candidates who are standing out for any of these jobs right now, which I think shows you that there was a pretty clear dividing line when it came to how attractive some of these jobs were. Who knows? Maybe the Raiders are waiting on Kubiak or something like that, and they've already locked that in. It's just not official yet. I don't know. But I do wonder if maybe the Cardinals and Browns jobs are just not attractive to anybody out there.
I mean, with the Browns situation with Deshaun Watson, the Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel controversy, you can't blame anybody for not wanting to take the job. And at some point, too, as a coaching candidate, you got to show a little bit of discernment because you don't want to just jump at the first job that comes available. You got to make sure it's the right opportunity. Nate Scheelhaus, I believe, is an up-and-coming star. And the truth of the matter is, if you're a coordinator, if you're an assistant for Sean McVay, for Kyle Shanahan, at some point you're going to get head coaching interviews because that's just how this league works. But you got to make sure that it's the right opportunity. But from an outsider, from a 50,000-foot view, these jobs really don't look that attractive.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And we'll see this week. It's a big week. I just can't imagine these jobs are just going to sit open until after the Super Bowl, unless there's already some sort of non-official agreement made. But I think we're going to start to see some dominoes fall. And of course, the big one that you're looking at is Brian Daboll. And can he get through the head coaching cycle and come be the Titans offensive coordinator? Top tier on the YouTube chat said earlier, how long did the Titans wait on him? You've got to lock someone else up if he doesn't sign here by Wednesday. I'm sure those conversations are fluid and are happening as we speak. Right now, today, Cliff Kingsbury, Adam Stenavich are interviewing with the Titans. I wonder if they're using those interviews, they're going to figure out who their plan B is from what they get out of those between Stenavich and Kingsbury. And then you use that as leverage against Daboll of, hey, we really like Cliff. We're going to hire him if you don't give us an answer in the next 24 hours. And Daboll may say, hey, I feel like I'm in a good spot with these head coaching jobs. I'm going to wait it out. And the Titans at that point have to say, you know what? We can't miss out on our second choice just because we're waiting around for you, and pull the trigger. Or Brian Daboll will say, you know what? Those interviews maybe didn't go as well as I thought they did. I'm just going to take the safe job while it's being handed to me right now.
And even if it's not Brian Daboll, I'd be very impressed if the Titans did that, because you cannot afford to wait. Waiting has already cost you 3 guys. So you really can't afford to wait for your first option. Even if you do have to settle a little bit, I'd be thoroughly impressed if the Titans used this as leverage against Brian Daboll and forced him to make a decision.
And I don't want to make that sound like it's some like ultimatum of like, it's us or them. You got to choose right now. And like, cause there's a lot that goes into this with family stuff. And I'm sure that Brian Daboll is weighing all his options, but at some point,
time isn't exactly on their side.
Right. You need an answer at some point, and the Titans likely will need an answer soon. We will see if they get that ahead of Robert Saleh's introductory press conference, which again has been pushed back. It is now Thursday at 2 p.m. Parker, appreciate you zooming in, co-hosting with me today. Tomorrow, I have to be out. We are traveling as this week, continues to unfold. So Parker and Nick will hold you down tomorrow on the show. Excited for that. And again, hope everybody's staying safe. Hope everybody's power comes back soon around Nashville. Stay warm out there and keep it tuned right here for all your updates around the winter weather situation. Coming up next, Chase and Big Joe. They'll have all your thoughts on the Super Bowl matchup and much more. Stay right here on 102.5 The Game.